Hello, this is Chuck Solomon, and welcome to the Candidate Experience Podcast, where we focus on the job candidate journey from apply to onboard and the space in between. Let's get started. You care about the candidate experience, but have you ever wondered exactly how to bring your company to that next level and offer a world-class experience to your candidates? It's not easy. Fortunately, Candidate.fyi can help. Their solution guides candidates through your hiring journey, enhancing transparency and communication at every touch point. You'll also gain valuable insights on what's working and what's not with your hiring process. Best of all, it integrates directly with your ATS. Head on over to Candidate.fyi and see how to transform your company's candidate experience today. Welcome to the License to Hire episode, where my special guest, Jessica McNulty, Talent Program Manager at SAS, shares her insights on improving the candidate experience. Pay special attention to the examples she shares and how her team is training both hiring managers and interviewers in how to ensure a positive candidate experience all the way through. If you like what you hear on this podcast, please subscribe and do share with others. Want to comment, discuss, or provide feedback, you can send me a note via LinkedIn or via the contact form at www.thecx.xyz. I thank you for listening, and here's my interview. How did you get started in this whole recruiting, talent acquisition industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've talked to many recruiters that say, it's not like you woke up and went to college and said, I want to be a recruiter one day, but it's something that kind of found you. And that's definitely what happened with me. I went to East Carolina University. I'm a very proud graduate of their College of Business program, and went to a software company called Bronto Software in Durham and did an HR internship and got to explore all the different avenues. But then found myself in love with recruitment, then moved over to SAS about 4 years ago, doing some recruitment coordination, recruiting, and now in working in a program management capacity, and feel really lucky and excited to still be in talent acquisition and more passionate about it every day.
Yeah, I asked this question of my guests, but I never actually answer it myself. But if you asked me that same question, someone recommended it to me. I think I had no recruiting experience, and someone said, you would make a really good recruiter. And I'm like, okay. And so this company hired me without any experience and stuff, and they had an awesome training program. And that's how I got started. So you guys have a well-known brand. SAS has been around since, is it the 80s or so? I forget when the 70s, founding.
42 years now, maybe 43, but 1976 was our official founding.
Got you. And still one of the largest, is it still privately held software companies in the country?
Yes, it is the largest privately held software company. We have about 14,000 employees.
Gotcha. And I think for those not familiar with SAS, SAS has an awesome reputation for having really, really stellar employee benefits. That's anyone that lives locally here knows that. So was that an attractant to you when you joined?
It was. It definitely is. The employee benefits are something we're really known for. The surprising thing, I think, about being an employee of SAS is that the benefits are fantastic, but the actual experience here and the people here are what make me excited to come to work every day. And in the recruiting seat, I try to remind candidates too that the great benefits are something that we're really proud of, but the employee experience is really what matters and has kept me motivated and excited as an employee myself.
Excellent. So you shared with me that wasn't always the case, I guess, that you had some challenges around candidate experience. Can you talk a bit about sort of what the business challenges that SAS was facing on the candidate experience side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our employee experience is phenomenal. We found that our candidate experience had, a lot of room for growth. We took the opportunity in 2017 when we were implementing a new applicant tracking system, actually, to kind of relook at our candidate experience and redesign what it looked like. But we found through that project and through the research that Glassdoor was not being very friendly to us, and we found some kind of scary things on Glassdoor when it came to our candidate experience. And then we actually talked to candidates, and they're like, "Yeah, it feels like a black hole when I apply, or it will be weeks and weeks or months before I hear anything, and I feel lost in the process." And so that was definitely a challenge. And we were doing more research and found that hey, these candidates are actually they could be our customers, they could be decision makers in businesses. And, I think there's a stat that's about 70% of people are less likely to buy from a company if they've had a bad interview experience. And we saw that we're oh my goodness. And obviously we're a B2B company, but still they could be those decision makers. So we thought now is the time. We're redesigning our whole process. We need to make candidate experience the focus.
Sure. Just for listeners' education, what SAS is a software company, but can you tell us a little bit about sort of who you're selling to, and what you sell?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are analytics through and through. So we are a company that sells software solutions at every stage of the analytics lifecycle. So from data quality to actually giving you results and giving you the analysis on that data. We sell to our customers are 96 of the top Fortune Global 500 companies. So most of the organizations that we all know and love and use on a day-to-day basis are SaaS customers. And example I always give is, analytics is affecting us all on a day-to-day basis. And SaaS has a lot of banks that are our customers. And if you've ever gotten a text message on your phone that says, "Hey, you have fraudulent activity on your account," that's most likely SaaS software in the background kind of analyzing those data points of your purchases and flagging that as one that might be a concern. That's something I feel like everybody can relate to and understand why the power of what we're able to do. But analytics, like I said, is our bread and butter, and what we're proud to have been doing for the last 40 plus years.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up about fraudulent activity. Over the weekend, I left. I've never done this before, but I went to a restaurant and I left my credit card there, or they actually didn't return it to me, and I forgot all about it. And then 2 days later, or a day later, I went to use it. And I'm looking for my credit card. I'm like, where is it? So I retraced my steps and went back to the restaurant, and they're like, yeah, here you go. And they're like, don't worry about it. Happens all the time. But of course, I went to my credit card company and said, what were the last sort of transactions? And luckily, there were no fraudulent transactions. They were all my transactions and stuff. So, but anyway, so that's neat. I didn't know that that's one of the things that you guys do. So absolutely.
Yeah, it's something. That's the one example I always give, because it's like you said, you left your credit card at a restaurant. I've done it sadly 1,000 times probably. I may have done that a few times before, but it's something that we can all relate to. But it is every industry with drug research. SAS is involved. Saving wildlife, tracking wildlife to save endangered species. So the one unique thing about SAS is that we do work in every industry. But that credit card example is tried and true for me to explain why it's so important.
Yeah, I think eventually I use Apple Pay sometimes, and unfortunately, not a lot of places allow that. So, but I find that a much more sort of safe, secure. I'm less likely to leave my phone somewhere. I don't think I've ever left my phone somewhere, so I have a good track record.
Well, that makes one of us.
You have a tendency of leaving your phone and credit card in places there. So.
Yes, ask my husband. I'm working on it.
That's funny. I know what a pain. I'm glad I found my credit card because it's such a pain to go ahead and redo all those things auto transactions and things like that. So, certainly a really, really big pain. So, so you guys had a challenge. What can you share what the solution was to the candidate experience challenge that you were having?
Yeah. So, I think first the solutions were like the low hanging fruit, the obvious things, our application, actually applying to our own jobs and realizing how painful it was at times,
right,
and optimizing that process, updating our communications, making sure that they, speak the language of SaaS and kind of represent our brand. But really, ultimately, like our larger solution ended up being our leadership team came together and they built out a program called License to Hire, which that really is built for our hiring managers. And why this was the solution to the problem was that it gave our hiring managers education about recruitment process. I think there's a misconception that the recruitment team has to do all the legwork when it comes to creating a great candidate experience, when really who's the candidate interacting with just as much, if sometimes more, is the hiring manager. So educating them on like what's an effective interview process and why candidate experience matters, and giving them some of those like data points on why candidate experience affects the bottom line and how they play a role in that is so important. And I'm super passionate about hiring manager experience, and I think their experience with the recruitment team is important, and so that we can influence them to make a good impression on our candidates, because the hiring manager is the one ultimately that the candidate is going to go work for. So my goal is for them to have a great experience with that hiring manager, even more than just the recruitment process, because that's what's going to be important ultimately, and something that people are going to walk away with.
Sure. So License to Hire, it sounds like a James Bond 007.
It does.
Maybe.
I take no credit for the title, but I think it's a fantastic one.
Yeah, no, when you said it, I thought James Bond would love this. That could be a title of the next movie or book or something. So maybe you guys ought to trademark that so they can't use it. So
it's a good idea.
Tell me a little bit more about sort of that License to Hire, program. How does that work?
Yeah, so how it works is that at the beginning of a recruitment process, hiring managers are asked to take License to Hire, which is a 1-hour training class, and it's broken up into 4 modules. So it gives managers time to break that up, but it's just a 1-hour class or course online that managers are asked to take prior to having a conversation with the recruiter, and it gives them a lot of information about what to expect and like what the partnership looks like, why candidate experience is important, how to design an effective interview process, all those things that give them education at the very beginning of the process on how to make sure you're set up for success. It builds like that foundation for our managers. That our recruitment team, a lot of we have that because we're doing this on a daily basis, but we all know that hiring managers are not hiring every day, hopefully.
Right.
And so that reminder, giving them that foundation is critical.
Sure. And there are obviously, first off, that's great, because I think I talk to managers often, and oftentimes people get promoted into managerial positions and they might have sat in on the interview process with other folks, and they've certainly gone through the interview process themselves, but they've not been the responsible hiring manager. And oftentimes companies give little or no instruction as to, how to run, just as you said, an effective hiring process. So good for y'all for providing some training to your managers and being better hiring managers. So, but
yeah, and I think it's not necessarily like, this is a big, robust global program for us, but I've talked with other people, and it's one of those things is just thinking that way of like saying our hiring managers need to know how to recruit too, and kind of figuring out ways, whatever works within your organization to train managers, if lunch and learns, or, just simple things, infusing recruitment into meetings that you can do to like just give them the education. And people really seem to have an appetite for it. I know you don't really know how it's going to land, but we've got all really good feedback. It's like, I had no idea how important candidate experience was, because I haven't thought about the tough market that we're all in from a talent perspective.
Yeah. The good thing is we're all in this together, I guess. So,
right.
But for sure. So, how about talk to me a little bit about sort of your interviewing process. I'm assuming there's more than just the hiring manager that's doing the interviewing. Do you have other team members that are part of the interview process?
Yes. So we have our interview process is 3 steps, which is, probably kind of standard across the board, but we have an initial screen with the recruiter. Then we have a phone interview with the hiring manager. And then our on-site interview has 3 stages, one that's based on job competencies, one that's based on our values, and then one that's kind of a role-based activity or a presentation portion. So there are other people that are involved in that process, aside from the hiring manager and the recruiter, not all of which are hiring managers. So there is one section of License to Hire that is specific to interviewers called License to Interview. That's one of the modules. That's about 20 minutes that people who are involved in the interview process, other than the actual hiring manager, can get some insight onto how to actually participate in an effective way in an interview, how to ask behavioral-based questions, and how to ensure that there's no bias in the interview, things like that. So it gives them training too, because I'm sure we've all felt this way, where we have people that get really nervous about interviewing. It's a stressful thing. It's not something you're doing on a regular basis, or you're an individual contributor. You're like, I don't know what to ask, or what I can and can't say, or how to assess someone. So we do offer one section of that module called License to Interview for those that are in that scenario.
So you have License to Hire and License to Interview. So
yes, and they kind of fold into each other. Okay. So License to Hire is 4 modules, and License to Interview is just one of those modules that's offered to everybody. So it's kind of it makes sure we cover everyone, but don't have different content for different groups. Everyone's getting the same content on how to effectively interview and ask questions, etc.
So you guys put together this program. Obviously, it would seem that any company could put together some sort of internal training that covers what hiring managers, their process, as well as anyone involved in the interview process. It seems like any size, a small or medium-sized company without the resources of a larger company could do this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that we built internally, which is critically important, I think, at least to make sure that whatever you're explaining to your hiring managers as your recruitment process and your candidate experience, what that looks like is authentic to your organization. That's one of the reasons I think that this program has been so effective. I've talked to people about potentially just create a one sheet, a best practice guide for your hiring teams that you're giving to them ahead of a recruitment process, but really resetting expectations and laying that groundwork before recruitment begins, I think is extremely impactful. When I was sitting in the recruiter seat, I found that my hiring managers and I communicated so much better when we were speaking the same language. So that's something I would highly recommend. It doesn't have to be a huge training. It can be something simple. You probably already have the process outlined somewhere, and your candidate, if you don't have your candidate experience kind of sell to your managers created, you can create that to make sure candidate experience is a part of it and share that with them at the start of a process. And it builds relationships and builds a stronger recruitment process for you as a recruiter, and then in turn your candidates.
Yeah. Thanks for, I think you pointed out in the challenge that you guys are facing there is a big disconnect, and for some companies that disconnect is a huge gap there between what the recruiting team is doing and what the hiring managers are doing. I hear about this. I tend to hear the negative thing, but I think you being proactive in trying to sort of bridge that gap. Would you say, like, if I asked you the question, who's responsible for hiring, the recruiting team or the hiring manager? How would you answer that?
I am absolutely the hiring manager in my view. I think that, like I mentioned, I'm super passionate about hiring manager experience because I think that affects the recruitment process so much more. A good recruiting team, in my mind, provides a great experience for the candidate, but through the hiring manager.
Sure.
I say all the time, we aren't hiring anyone. They are hiring. The hiring managers are the ones hiring someone. So enabling our recruitment team to enable the managers to create that great experience, I think, is what really matters most. And I think that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, totally agree. And I totally agree that it is the hiring manager's responsibility.
I don't know if they know that. I don't know if hiring is, but
I think at every chance that you can get to go ahead and express that, you should. I think it's, when you look at it this way, if you're a hiring manager and you have a budget to hire people and you have metrics you're trying to meet and you don't have a full complement of staff, then you're the one that has the pain around that. So first and foremost, you should be straight on active in trying to make sure that you have that full complement of people. And I always say, why wait till someone leaves or there's an opening? You should be recruiting all the time. I've had some other guests talk about that too, about proactively networking. They mentioned it as, hiring managers should always be recruiting, like always looking for people and having conversations. And they flip that to the candidates and job seekers themselves, that candidates should already be having relationships with potential hiring managers. You never know when they might have an opening and you might be available to go work. So, but yeah, I like how you said that. So, hiring managers are responsible. The recruiting team helps with the process and supports, but it's the hiring manager's responsibility. Have you gotten any feedback or done any surveying or anything to sort of like, pre and post, before you did this license to hire program, and then after?
Yeah, so we are still in the thick of like the adoption phase right now, and of getting hiring managers on board. In total, we've had about 1,000 of our hiring managers and employees take either license to hire or license to interview. So that's like a huge thing for me. I was like, wow, 1,000 people have been impacted by this. We do measure our satisfaction from a hiring manager and candidate perspective in a survey that follows every position. We've gotten really positive feedback. Our hiring manager or candidate satisfaction score is at a 4.7 out of 5 now, and we have gotten a lot of comments on the interview process was very structured. I knew what to expect. I had, touch points throughout that. And I think a lot of that is due to the structure that we've put into place. And from a hiring manager side, they really like license to hire. This is the first time we've had anything so structured in a recruitment process for them. So they really given really good feedback, and hiring manager scores have been in that 4.5 range out of 5 for us. So we are very pleased with that, and still wanting to get more and more hiring managers to take it as their positions open.
Great. I might need to do a follow-up with you, like after you've gone through more hiring managers and stuff. But it sounds like, it sounds like things are going well. So good for you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, we are saying that gotten feedback on specific, people always have feedback. So we're thinking about doing like a licensed hire 2.0 upgrade and
Sure.
adjusting things after an initial launch. And that's potentially to come. We'll see.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your insights, and thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Candidate Experience Podcast. You can reach out to us via our website, thecx.xyz. That's thecx.xyz.